Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host as always. And joining me is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing coming off the extended version marathon of Lord of the Rings? I can imagine it was a pretty great weekend for you.
Yeah, man. 12 of the last 72 hours, I've been sitting in a theater watching Lord of the Rings, Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. All the extended versions. I've had a lot of popcorn, a lot of soda, a lot of sweet tart ropes and bunch of crunch or whatever those are called. I'd love to have some real food soon. It's nice to be able to go outside and see the sun. But no, it's been great. It's a bucket list thing that I got to do. Sure, it's a little bit longer when you're watching the extended versions, but it was fun. How was your experience, at least watching Two Towers?
Yeah, it was great, man. So I tweeted this out, but Two Towers was the first midnight premiere that my parents let me go to. I feel so bad for this generation because they don't get that thrill of just like being a teenager or a younger kid and going to your first like midnight premiere. So nostalgic for me, when that happened, my mom only let us go because my oldest brother was also going, and his friends and like the family like knew all of the friends and everybody like that. And so, there were no assigned seatings back then. And so basically, if you were not early, like you got stuck like in the very front. So my brother and all of his friends, they all dressed up like the cloaks, the ears, like everything. They were big into film and stuff like that. And much to my chagrin as a 10-year-old, we showed up like 3 hours before. And so like we were like first in line. We sprinted to the seats that we wanted. And so that's just always like a movie experience that I have always cherished. And so seeing Two Towers again in theaters it was awesome. I love that this is becoming a thing again. And that movie particularly, like it just always holds such a soft spot in my heart. My brothers and I have made that kind of a thing. Well, when I lived in Utah anyways, we would always go to like a premiere of a movie as close to midnight as possible. It became tougher as my oldest brother started to have kids and things like that. But that was kind of the start of it. And so it's just, that movie will always hold something special for me and my family and my brothers. And it was great to see it in theaters again.
Yeah, really is truly special. Best trilogy ever. The love that went into it. They don't make movies like this anymore, kind of thing. And I don't know if we'll ever see something with that much like love and care and perfection go into a set of a trilogy like that ever again.
Yeah, when you go back and watch movies from 2003, sometimes they're like a little difficult to watch just from like a plot standpoint, like a CGI standpoint, overall just technology and writing. And you go back and watch Lord of the Rings, which was written, when I was in like, or not written. Obviously it's a book well before that, but when it was released in theaters, the first one came out when I was in like kindergarten. And other movies of that same year, you go back and watch and you're like, man, this just does not hold up. And everything just holds up so well. Like there are some little parts that just kind of like are kind of weird, like Gimli can be a little too goofy at certain times, but that's really like the only thing that doesn't just hold up like incredibly well. So I loved it. I thought it was a great weekend. I wish I had time to go to all three like you did, but those movies, man, just will always hold up against the test of time for me.
Yeah, good stuff. Unlike the Hobbit trilogy, which was fine, but
Yeah, I'm curious how this show does in season 2. I know you didn't love the first season.
No.
I didn't like love it either. I thought it was like fine. One of Amazon Prime's few misses. Most of their other shows are actually like really, really good. So I'm curious to see what season 2 looks like there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we always like to talk about certain other things outside of football before we start talking about football, and there's our non-football talk. So if you are not a fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you can skip the first 5 minutes of this show.
You can unsubscribe.
Fair. As Tyler named his dog after a Lord of the Rings character and then has a Lord of the Rings figurine behind him.
Yeah. And some swords.
Yeah.
All
right. So today we are going to talk about some bold predictions for the 2024 season. These are predictions that we've kind of stewed over the weekend and felt like we wanted to get these out before training camp and things like that. It's one thing to do a bold prediction in training camp after you have everything kind of sorted out in terms of roles and things like that. But we wanted to get these out today, and we'll see what holds the test of time. For me, I guess we can just kind of start like what kind of thought process went in here. I do like to have a bold prediction, at least like rooted somewhat in reality. I'm not just gonna like throw any Joe Schmo prediction out there like Brendan Rice leading the Chargers and receiving would be kind of ridiculous, and there'll have to be a lot of injuries. But there are other things that are kind of like rooted in film and stats, things like that, and you need to see some things kind of come together. That for me is how I interpret a bold prediction. What about you, Tyler? What was kind of your thought process here?
Yeah, same. It's definitely not a stupid prediction. It's a bold prediction that could maybe come true. Like it's on the outlier, but you could get there if all things align, assuming it's a positive bold prediction. So yeah, I agree. Had to be a couple of things where I could go, okay, it is possible, and there's at least two reasons or a reason in a stat or whatever that backs up the guess.
Yeah, we do bold predictions during the season. I think the absolute best bold prediction we've ever had during the season is when Tyler predicted that Gerald Everett would have more receiving yards than Travis Kelce, and it actually hit that one time that he called it. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. You know, it has to be kind of like the right mix of things, a little bit of reality, a little bit of lots of question marks about that position, that player. Things have to come together here. So we have obviously Joshua Palmer is in our thumbnail, and he is the title character here. So we're going to talk about Joshua Palmer first and foremost here. My bold prediction is that Josh Palmer has his first 1,000-yard season. Now, there are some Chargers fans who might not think that's a little bit bold. You know, a lot of Chargers fans, I think, recognize that he's kind of like the lone hangover, if you will, from the previous roster. But nationally, Ladd McConkey is getting a lot of wide receiver one talk for this team, and I understand it. They just took him in the second round. They traded up to get him. But Palmer, me and you both are, I think, on the same page here that until we see otherwise, Palmer is the wide receiver one for us. So for you, Tyler, outside of the obvious of health question, why would you have confidence in Palmer potentially breaking out and leading this team in receiving, having his first 1,000-yard season?
Yeah.
What does that kind of stem from for you?
I've seen it, not the 1,000 yards, obviously, but I've seen him on the field. McConkey, there's question marks. Johnson, there's question marks. Rice, we don't know. Cornelius Johnson, we don't know. Darius Davis is not going to be a leading receiver for them. So I don't really know about the rest of this group. Josh Palmer, I know works on the field, and I know that he has a connection with Justin Herbert. And, you know, like last year, I talked about Alohi Gilman. We talked about Alohi Gilman as a breakout candidate. There were steps along the way to seeing that he could be the breakout candidate. He improved a bit every single year. And Josh Palmer, you know, sometimes it's health or it's just the role, guys in front of him, his rookie season, third round pick, etc. But he hasn't really been able to like put it all together, but he's slowly built every year. And this past year, like his yards per route run jumped up quite a bit. What he did in Kansas City was something that I didn't expect him to be able to do, and him be able to step up in certain situations was nice to see. So I can really see that he is in a position to take that step forward. And truly it does come down to health. And I guess whether he officially fits what they want to do as a focal point of their offense. But right now, I don't see, even if he's not, you know, a high volume receiver, I don't see why he's not wide receiver one early on.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. A lot of question marks at the position, which I think is kind of why this take has some meaning to it. There's no real tight end that's going to garner a ton of targets. There's no running back that we know of that's going to, you know, catch 107 passes out of nowhere like Austin Eckler did a few years ago. So there's a lot there. I think, you know, I went back and watched some of the games from last season in kind of the meat of the season where Keenan is on the field, Mike is not on the field, Quentin's on the field. Basically, everybody's healthy outside of Mike. And there's just like a trust factor to the way that Justin Herbert plays football in general. And when Joshua Palmer was a rookie, we saw this where it was like it just kind of took him and Justin a bit to get on the same page. And then in 2022 or 2022, same kind of thing. There was just like it just took them a bit. But then if you watch them in 2023, you know, Herbert is like actively looking to get Joshua Palmer the football outside of like the design plays. Like obviously there are designer plays for every receiver, every tight end, every running back for them to catch the football. What I'm referring to here in the trust factor is like, okay, the team takes away the number one target, which obviously we usually was Keenan. Who's my second target or my third target that Herbert can comfortably get to and then trust to throw the football to? More often than not, that was Palmer last year. And it was a different level of trust than what you were seeing, obviously, with Quentin, with Darius, with the tight ends. Like, if you watch the tape from last season, you actively see Herbert just like skip the tight end. And that was even with Gerald Everett. So he wanted to get to Palmer. There's that trust level there. There's the ability to throw back shoulder fades there. That's not something that we really saw a whole lot of with Quentin, with certainly not with Darius. And there's all these other new receivers. So I think like him and Ladd, I trust to get on the same page. But there's just that next level of trust factor that I believe is going to carry over between Herbert and Palmer into a big season for Palmer. It's just like the health thing. Like he's had so many different injuries. He's had the 3 concussions. But if we believe, like this kind of the same conversation as Joey Bosa, if we believe in Ben Herbert's ability to kind of nip those hamstring issues in the bud, then Palmer can stay on the field. And that to me leads to a big season for Joshua Palmer.
What do we think we're trying to go a little bit bold here. What is his ceiling here in terms of receiving yards? I don't think it's a 1,500, 1,400 yard season unless they have a completely different offense than we all expected. And he has just a magical season. But I'm kind of feeling like that range that Keenan Allen kind of settled in when he didn't, play like maybe every game, but played a good amount. And he settled into like that 90 to 110 catches, 1,000, 1,100 kind of yard season. Does that seem about right?
Yeah. If you're asking me like ceiling, I would say probably like 1,200, just because I don't think it's going to be the same volume as we're used to with the wide receiver 1. And then there's just more players this year to feature. So I would say like 1,200 is probably what I would say like ceiling. If he plays every game and Herbert plays every game, that kind of tops out for me there.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Last thing about Palmer here is he is kind of dubbed by the fan base as kind of like a short intermediate guy. If you filter out just the games where he started and finished and Mike Williams was not on the field, I understand that's kind of like a humble jumble of games, but basically you're talking about weeks 4 through 8 and then the last 4 games of the season. So it's only 9 games, technically speaking. But in those 9 games, his yards per reception was 20. Like he was one of the most productive deep receivers in the league last season when he was given the opportunities. So I know he doesn't run a 4.4. I know he doesn't run a 4.3. I know he's not like a burner, but he can get deep and Herbert trusts him to go deep. And I think that is the most important thing here. So I understand like stylistically, he doesn't necessarily fit that way. But 20 yards per reception is 20 yards per reception. There was only one other receiver in the league who had more yards per reception higher than that. And it was Tyreek Hill. So yeah, man, like Joshua Palmer can get deep. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean the walk-off throw against the Raiders for 50 whatever yards was a down the sideline deep ball. The Josh Palmer had to have it and went for him. So would I designate him and call him a deep threat? Not necessarily, but like you said, he can get it done.
Yeah, 100%. So we wanted to feature Joshua Palmer. I think he's going to be a very common breakout pick amongst the fan base, and rightfully so. The numbers are there. The film is there. We just got to get this guy healthy as kind of a theme for a lot of Chargers, as we all know. All right, Tyler, what's your big first bold prediction here?
All right, let's do it. So the new special teams kickoff rules are all kind of different, right? A lot of teams are admitting we don't really know what's going to happen. How will we adjust? Who's going to have the advantage? How can we get an advantage? I think a lot of things will change. And maybe early on, some things might spring open or be different than expected before things start to close up. And maybe
it's going to be chaotic for sure.
It'll be chaotic, right? And I think Darius Davis and Ryan Ficken are the right combination to take advantage of that chaos, because Darius Davis is a great returner as is. He's that fast. Ficken is on top of the game as he always is. So I think they'll find an advantage early. So I'm going to say that a bold prediction, I won't say he breaks it, but I will say Darius Davis ties Devin Hester's 6 returns for a touchdown in a single season.
All right. You love to see it. That would be, I think the NFL's intention of this is to get more returns for touchdowns or at least big plays. It's so funny that you obviously you bring up Ryan Ficken here because a lot of these special teams coordinators are like, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this, and we're thinking about doing this, and like we brought in this rugby player to do kickoffs for us." And Ryan Ficken's like, "I'm not saying any of that."
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan Ficken is going to cook something up. I cannot wait to see it. We expect big things overall for Darius Davis as a returner. I mean, he's second team All Pro as a rookie. So I love this prediction. Breaking the record, that's the bold part for me, but I do expect we'll see Darius, break a few big ones like we did last year.
Yeah, I'll say tie it for now because I think things might change,
tie.
or maybe this gives, we don't know, this might give the coverage an advantage in the when all is said and done. But I think he can tie it, so that would require 6, so 7 to break it.
That's 6 total or 6
total
kickoff?
6 total.
Okay, 6 total. All right. I wonder if we had like an over under for Darius Davis return touchdowns. What would we set that at?
2.5. So
we had 2 last
realistically,
year.
Probably 2.5. We'll see how the rule affects everything, but yeah, like 3 is a lot for a lot of teams or any team in most seasons for one guy. So, but I don't know. It's been different, right? Because we have not seen this kind of kickoff for a bit.
No, I mean it's going to be so different. I guess if you count preseason, Davis had 3 last year. So
yeah,
we know he can do it. I mean, 3 in 19 games or whatever he played. Yeah, man, I love that. I also have a special teams one.
Go for it. You up, Ben? You're up.
So my bold prediction here: Chargers fans love him, and the camera cannot stay away from this guy, and I love to see it. My bold prediction for 2024 for Cameron Dicker is that he gets into that conversation for best kicker in league. I think a lot of casual NFL fans still hold on to Justin Tucker as that guy. The numbers from last season for Justin Tucker do not belong in that conversation. Justin Tucker was more kind of a second tier kicker, still second tier kicker. Oh my gosh, lots of alliteration there. Still very good. Like he's one of the best kickers of all time. But I think the timing is right for the mantle to be passed. I think Justin Tucker is losing some of his reliability to a certain extent. Like he missed 2 extra points last year, and I know that's not a lot, but for Justin Tucker and for the best kicker conversation, that's a lot. Justin Tucker was 2 for 8 on kicks over 50 yards last season. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of regression, age kind of factoring in for Justin Tucker. So to me, if you take away Cameron Dicker and Justin Tucker, I think the next guys in line, I think a lot of fans, his graduation speech did not help, but Harrison Butker's numbers are like elite. Like the guy is, he is the only guy who is in the top 6 of every kicking category that I looked at today at PFF. The only guy. The next 2 after that, in terms of most frequently measured in those categories, are Daniel Carlson for the Raiders and Cameron Dicker, obviously, for the Chargers. So I think the timing is right here for somebody to take that mantle. And Cameron Dicker had an amazing season last year. And I think so many Chargers fans were like, we don't know if he can kick past 50. And then he went out and was let me make sure I get this right. He had 7 made kicks from 50 yards plus. One of which was like really, really close to becoming, one of his misses was really, really close. Only 4 other kickers had more kicks from 50 plus, including Harrison Butker. So I think the timing is right for Cameron Dicker to truly become that next step. I think a lot of people around the league started paying attention to him once the Chargers made that like awesome Pro Bowl campaign. And they're like, whoa, the Chargers actually have a good kicker. Like, what's going on here? So I think this is Dicker's time to take that mantle and be able to run with it. Maybe Harrison Butker is just so motivated by the reception from his graduation speech that he doesn't let that happen. But I think Cameron Dicker gets into that conversation. I think he earns Pro Bowl consideration, all pro consideration. And I think he's ready to become one of the next guys here.
That's a good one. And I don't see why he wouldn't. After the first year, okay, like we haven't seen a ton. All he did was improve in year 2 and show us what he could do from 50 plus. So I'm not as concerned there. Would like to see more, of course. But when we talked about him before, months ago, we talked about how he was, if he continues this pace, he's going to settle in as one of the 5 most accurate field goal kickers in NFL history.
Yeah.
Based on his field goal percentage. Now, does that hold? We'll see. He's on a great pace, but it's got to hold. But I think it can. And the stability of retaining Ryan Ficken, as you mentioned earlier, and just retaining this same core with them, I think is going to help a ton. You know, still have Josh Harris, the best golfer on the team, and still have J.K. Scott and Ficken. So the operation's still going to be there for him. Yeah, I don't see why he can't enter the conversation. I think that only reps and time and maybe even timing of the kicks has prevented him from really getting into that conversation. So if the Chargers are in more low-scoring games this year and they're playing tighter defense, maybe not as explosive on offense, and there's more opportunities for Dicker to go out and win and hit in these primetime games or whatever it is against, pretty decent opponents, then yeah, I think he can enter that conversation. So all eyes will be on the Chargers. So if he makes these attempts in key moments, then yeah, I could see him entering the conversation. I don't know what it takes, but I believe he will be at least a top 10 kicker this year. But to get into that upper trajectory, like upper tier, let's say top 3, top 4, yeah, I definitely think it's possible.
Yeah, I think if you're like trying to, move Justin Tucker and Harrison Butker off their, respective pedestals, it's big moments. It's the playoffs. It's, having those kind of viral moments that we see so often, game-winning kicks. But, I've said this before, like when Cameron Dicker gets out there, like I have full confidence in him where I will go to the bathroom if he's kicking. Like I do not stress about Cameron Dicker kicking field goals like I used to from these other guys. So I see some stuff in the chat about, from 50 yards. I don't know what more you want to see from the guy. He was, 7 for 9 from 50 plus last year. He was one of the best in the league from 50 plus. He had a game winner from 53 yards out. So Cameron Dicker is one of the best kickers in the league. And I think he'll start to be recognized as such this season. Before we get to the rest of our bold predictions, first and foremost, if you have any that you guys like, feel free and drop them in the chat. Drop them on the YouTube comments, on Twitter. We'll be sure to respond to some tonight as we go, and on the show and on social media as we go as well. Also, the NBA Finals is the kind of wrap up of our current deal with Prize Picks. So we want to make sure that you guys go out and you take advantage while we still have this code and this opportunity for you to get a deposit match up to $100. That is at prizepicks.com/guilty. Code guilty at checkout. They have tons of NBA Finals stuff up. If you're into golf, aforementioned golf, I went golfing today. If you're a big golfer, they have a lot of US Open stuff for this week in the upcoming tournament. So it's a great way to just, get some skin in the game, whatever game that is. I know we have a lot of baseball fans on here as well. Dodgers, Padres, Giants, kind of a big deal. Make sure and go to prizepicks.com/guilty for a deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty. All right, Tyler, why don't you get to your next one here?
All right, let's go bold. Why do you bring in Jim Harbaugh? You bring in Jim Harbaugh to win, and because of the offensive line. And I think all of us expect the offensive line to take a step forward this year. And at minimum, I think everyone thinks Joel will be good. Some believe he'll be great. Some believe he was the best prospect even since Penei Sewell, which I don't buy.
Some thought he was better than Penei Sewell.
And I think they're all wrong, but that's totally fine. I do think he's a great prospect regardless. And I think you and I at least agreed there and felt good with the pick, et cetera, et cetera. I think this offensive line is going to be better. But how much better? Let's go bold. I think the Chargers will have 3, and you can figure out which 3 if you'd like. 3 players make either All-Pro or Pro Bowl this year along the offensive line. If you think it's all 3 former first-round picks, great. If you want to throw Sawyer or Pipkins or Bozeman in there, fine. But I'm going to boldly say the Chargers will have 3, and I definitely think they'll at least have 1.
Well, I mean, I'll start with the obvious one here.
Yes.
Rashawn Slater, when healthy, top 2 offensive tackle in the league, in my opinion.
Yep.
Maybe not as a run blocker. I'll give some people that obviously Trent Williams and Penei Sewell are better run backers than him. Tristan Wirfs probably is a better run blocker than him. But I watched the first 3 games from last season when Rashawn Slater was healthy, and like nobody was touching Justin Herbert from that side. I can tell you that much. The man as a pass protector is like a surgeon out there. He is one of the most consistently good to great to awesome offensive tackles that, I'm not like a, historian here. I didn't watch like Larry Allen, rest in peace, back in the day, but nobody that I watched on tape is more consistently good in pass protection than Rashawn Slater when he is healthy. So to me, the chances of him tearing his tricep again or playing through 2 high ankle sprains again are pretty slim. I think he's going to stay healthy this year, and I think it's going to turn into an all-pro season. Like that's not a hot take. Like I think everybody watching the show probably feels really good about it. The other two, to me, that's Joe Alt, who you mentioned, and then that's Zion after that. And I know that I'm the Zion guy. I get it. But he's so close to figuring it out. Like he was one of the main reasons why I wanted to watch some offensive line tape. He's so close, man. It's just like some consistency issues here and there from a striking standpoint, from a balance standpoint. But he's so close, man. I just need Ben Herbert and oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on his name right now. Devlin to just like tweak some things, and then Zion can get there. So I love this take. I'm embarrassed that I did not have this take as the offensive line guy. But I think Zion is so close, and we see so many offensive tackle injuries every single year that if Joe Alt hits, like I do think there's a chance that he is a Pro Bowl guy. I think that's in the cards. I'm not going to like predict it outright, but as a bold prediction, I think this has some legs to it.
Yeah. All pro is definitely tough. Obviously, I'm including like second team on here.
Yeah, 100%.
No, like fifth team stuff or whatever. But I definitely think that like Rashawn will make that if he's healthy. And then from there, it's just like Pro Bowl voting, which is technically a fan vote. Joel has a ton of fans. It seems like in the scouting community and leading up to the draft, like he was the consensus guy. People loved him. He was the guy. And I think everyone wants to see him do well. And Harbaugh is known for this offensive line stuff. So there's a lot of eyes on him, which means I think a lot of votes can go his way. I think that happens. I think Zion has the toughest shot he might play better than Joe Alt, but I think he's got a tough spot. There's a lot of really good guards in the league right now. Tackles, I think there's a new crop that's finally come in, but it's not as great, I think, as guard or interior, I should say. So, even if he doesn't make it, I think he'll play close to it. But I'm going to go with 3 for a Pro Bowl or All Pro.
Yeah, offensive tackle is definitely an easier group to get into. If you read that Pro Football Focus article about the ranking the top guards, you probably think there's not that many good guards, but there's a lot of great guards, and they get injured less, which I think is an interesting conversation. But the offensive tackle group, it's like, the players who are Pro Bowl level players, a lot of them have injury question marks, especially in the AFC. So, like Laramie Tunsil has a lot of injury question marks, Tyron Smith injuries. There's not a ton of AFC elite offensive tackles. Most of them are in the NFC, which I think is interesting. But I think that's pretty close. If you had to pick one of the interior guys, would you say Zion is the most likely then?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, he's the most talented, obviously the highest draft pedigree, looks great. I know he's going to be playing and starting. Bozeman, I think will start too. But even then, I'm like, maybe there's a 1% chance he doesn't. Sure. I have no idea if Sawyer is even technically starting at right guard. So yeah, I'll go Zion.
All right. Sounds good. Sticking with the offense here, and then do you have another one after that?
I could keep going, but
okay. Well, we'll do. I'll have one, and then we'll do one each, and we'll take some from the chat. My next one here is gonna be about Hayden Hurst. I think Hayden Hurst, for my bold prediction, is that Hayden Hurst is going to lead the Chargers in receiving touchdowns. We talked a bit about just kind of where he's at in the Justin Herbert hierarchy. And if you go look at the red zone touchdown metric here, or just kind of total output, obviously Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen. He's no longer here. He had 7 red zone touchdowns last season. And then after that, the next most common names were always the tight ends. Gerald Everett actually had more red zone touchdowns than Mike Williams did in 2022. Last season, Donald Parham had 4, and he barely played. He's obviously one of the most efficient players in the league. So the red zone is really an area where Justin Herbert favors the tight end. And so my thought process was Hayden Hurst is the very clear receiving tight end one. And then from a wide receiver standpoint, we don't really know who like the number one option in the red zone is going to be. Like DJ Chark has the most Mike Williams attributes in him. It could be him. Ladd McConkey is the quickest separator. It could be him. Josh Palmer, we just talked about, has the most trust, but Palmer only had 2 total touchdowns last year. It's not like he was a big touchdown maker. So I think that red zone area is going to be prime Hayden Hurst area. And I could see a world where Hayden Hurst gets like 7 or 8 touchdowns this season because he just is such a good spot from a usage standpoint, from a role standpoint, where that kind of became my vision for him, is that he's just kind of your, in the hashes tight end, and then he's your red zone tight end. And I could see him getting 70 touchdowns and leading the team in receiving touchdowns this year.
I like that. I'm trying to go back to Baltimore to see who led there. I guess Mark Andrews leading.
That's a pretty easy one. Yeah.
Yeah. With 10 in 2019. So on the one hand, like, yes, you see that there's a clear funnel to a tight end, whether it's the same kind of production, we'll see, but I don't mind that one. There really isn't a clear cut option. Last year they tried some things with Keenan. Like they always try to do different things with Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Gerald Everett Lombardi tried that. Moore tried that. So Hayden Hurst, definitely not a huge surprise there. Like Disley doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. I think he will be a couple times. He'll surprise, like, oh wow, Disley touchdown. But yeah, Hurst being the leader in the tight end room for sure. So I'm sorry, just to clarify, this is receiving touchdowns, not just red zone.
Correct. This is total receiving touchdowns. I just think that he's going to be like the red zone guy, and that's going to carry over to him leading in the category as a whole, because I just think that there's a lot of mouths to feed elsewhere. And
right.
So I have a hard time picturing, Ladd getting like 10 touchdowns. I have a hard time picturing Palmer getting 10 touchdowns. Like I think Hayden Hurst, just from a volume standpoint, is going to be the red zone guy, and that's going to translate to him leading the team in overall receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated to see it. That makes sense. I could see that being over Palmer, although again, it's a red zone thing.
Right.
But then how interesting of a role does Ladd McConkey have with this offense? Does Greg Roman have an interesting role in the red zone for Ladd McConkey at all? Does Donald Parham even, is he healthy? Okay, I like it. Hayden Hurst has a bold prediction to lead. If that's the bold prediction, what would be the safe bet?
The safe bet in total touchdowns, I think, is Ladd, just because I think his skill set from the slot, it just creates like easier opportunities for Greg Roman to dial up. And he has the big play potential, kind of mixed in there as well. Like, I think that's probably where my mind first went. If DJ Chark is the wide receiver 2 or 3, which, I think he should be wide receiver 4, but that's neither here nor there. If he has a bigger role, I think it could be him, because he does have that bigger body type of potential that none of the other guys do have. So I think DJ Chark would be kind of like a sneaky pick there. But if I had to choose, it would be Ladd and then probably Hayden Hurst after that.
Yeah. Okay. Should be fun. I like that we don't really know.
Yeah, I have no idea how this wide receiver role is going to shake out. Like, I think Palmer and Ladd are like the clear-cut 1 and 2. But other than that, it's like we don't really know anything about any of these guys and how Herbert is going to dial out trust and things like that. Like maybe Brendan Rice just like kind of has an awesome training camp, and he becomes that wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 3 type, and maybe they cut DJ Chark. Like, I don't know, man. Like everything is on the table here outside of, for me, everything outside of Palmer and Ladd, their roles are up for grabs.
Yeah. Would you say that Hurst, let's say Hurst does lead the way in receiving touchdowns, or whoever it is leads the way in receiving touchdowns.
Sure.
Do they lead the way in total touchdowns?
No, I think the leader in touchdowns is going to be one of the running backs. I haven't decided who I want to pick there. But like that, there's just so many more options there because, you know, Gus Edwards had 13 rushing touchdowns last season and 2 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like the amount of running they're going to do in the red zone is going to dwarf passing, I think. But maybe that's J.K. Dobbins. Maybe that's Vidal. Like, I don't know. Like, I think the running back room is more up for grabs than people think too. So that one's also hard to predict right now.
All right. I will go with my last one here, and or we can keep going into this, but I see a lot of good ones in the chat, so I'll wrap it up with this one. I will say, and go a bit different and go off the field, though it's related to on the field. And I will say that Joe Ortiz wins NFL Executive of the Year this year. It does not require the Chargers to be the first place team in their own division or to even make or win the Super Bowl. I'm looking at some previous winners. Reggie McKenzie in 2016. The Raiders did not win the Super Bowl that year, and they were not.
Why did anybody think that was a good idea?
Hey man, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just looking at it. Stood out to me too, and hopefully the Chargers have maybe a better. I mean, listen, the Raiders were headed to be a good team that year. I believe that's the year that Carr got hurt in the end, so they didn't have the year that they wanted to. But yeah, I'll go with Joe Ortiz, NFL Executive of the Year this year.
Just for context's sake, last year was Brad Holmes. They made it to the NFC Championship game. Year before that was Brandon Beane. I think the Bills made the divisional round that year. Year before that was Duke Tobin. They made the Super Bowl. Year before that was Brandon Beane when they made the AFC Championship game. 2019 was Eric DeCosta. They made the AFC Championship game. 2018 was Ryan Pace. That's an outlier because they made it to the wild card. Howie Roseman in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Dave Gettleman won. Oh my gosh. No, Steve Keim. What? No way. Is this real? Bill Polian. Oh my gosh. Bill
Polian, 6-time winner, man.
Oh my gosh. I did not realize how bad of a list this is. I don't know if I want him on this list anymore.
He'll be the good part of the list. Listen, these guys, like, well, some of them I'm a little surprised by. The Panthers and Gettleman winning it at that 1 year.
They made it to the Super Bowl that year. I guess that's kind of fair, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not a
So you have to make the playoffs basically in order to win this award. And I think part of this is either like you make it to the Final Four or you just like really drastically exceed expectations. So I'm not predicting that first part to be on the table for the Chargers this year. That second part definitely is. And I think that could be a good thing for Mr. Joe Ortiz.
Yeah. So, you take a team that picked top 5. You're honestly cutting quite a bit and trading a bit, really working with a bunch of small, low tier acquisitions. You take that team and then work your way with Harbaugh to get to, let's say they get like 11. Obviously they make the playoffs, maybe win a game. I think it's in the cards.
No, if they make the playoffs and win a game, I think it's definitely in the cards for Joe Ortiz because like the argument is very easy. Okay, you had the Chargers roster, which you had to basically shred from a cap perspective. You have a ton of dead cap. You have to convince Joey and Khalil Mack to take pay cuts. And if they're going to reach their potential, it means this rookie class is going to be awesome right away. So I think if that happens, it's a very easy argument to make for Joe.
Yeah.
All right. There we go.
Is it even bold?
I think it is from the national perspective, because from the national perspective, it's like very, very, very pro Jim Harbaugh. And I understand why. But Joe's kind of like, in the shadows right now. But, if this rookie class is awesome, and some of these 1-year veterans just kind of ball out, like if J.K. Dobbins just like leads the team in rushing, it's going to be like, wow, Joe Ortiz, what a smart move, So all that stuff. Okay, my last one here. I wanted to do something with Alohi Gilman.
Nice.
Last year we picked him as the breakout player, so I felt like I had to do better than that. And so I'm going to say that Alohi Gilman makes his first Pro Bowl. That is a bold prediction.
Nice.
I initially felt like, like maybe he's in the conversation, but that's not bold enough. So bold for me is Alohi makes it to the Pro Bowl. I think this specific system is very, very safety friendly And we just saw 3 safeties have great seasons in Baltimore. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton is a freak and probably the best safety in the league. But Geno Stone was like a 6th-round pick from Iowa and had a great, fantastic breakout season, led the league in interceptions, was just like a perfect fit there. And so I think it's on the table for Alohi to continue to get better. He's gotten better every single year he's been in the NFL. And we know that he's at minimum like an above average starter. I think we can comfortably say at this point. But if you look at like his weaknesses as perceived by the Chargers fan base is that he doesn't cover well. He doesn't make plays in the deep part of the field. He's just kind of a box safety. And then he's just kind of happens to be around the football, like all that stuff. But if you look at the numbers on Pro Football Focus for Alohi Gilman, grades are grades, whatever your opinion are them. He had the 5th highest coverage grade in the league among safeties. And in terms of raw stats, he was 7. He forced 7 incompletions, which was the 6th most. His forced incompletion percentage was 21% among all safeties, which was also 6th in the league. And then his 7 forced incompletions were 7 pass breakups, which is 3rd in the league. And he had 2 interceptions, and he forced 4 fumbles. So this is a guy that is constantly around the football, and that was in a defense where we didn't really trust the scheme. We didn't really trust the ability for them to maximize his skill set. And I think the relationships that Alohi has already on the coaching staff, he's a leader now. Everybody on the defense kind of knows what he can do now. The ability to get those turnovers is just going to, I think, lead to a potentially like even better season than last year when he had a great season. So for him to earn Pro Bowl honors, that to me means he's got to be like close to the league lead in interceptions or like forced turnovers in general. That can be fumbles too. And I think that is on the table. It's very, very difficult to do. There are some great safeties that get a lot of interceptions, and there's a lot of great safety play in the AFC. So for Alohi to do this, I think it's going to take a lot more ball production in terms of interceptions because he only had the 2 last year. So I think you got to get to like 4 or 5, and I think that's on the table. And then the other thing, he did have kind of like a high-ish missed tackle rate. It's not terrible, but it was like 10%-ish. And to me, that's got to come down to like 5 or 6%. He's just got to be consistently good tackling in order to kind of take that next step. And that's kind of like in general. But for Pro Bowl stuff, I think he's got to be able to get, 4 or 5 interceptions and just continue doing everything else that he's doing. Like, I think, getting interceptions is very difficult, but I think that kind of season is firmly on the table for Alohi. And I think, Chargers fans, I would encourage you guys to go out there and vote for him when that does come to the table.
Yeah, he really doesn't strike me as a player that is going to quote unquote get his money and then just fade away and not like play hard anymore. This is someone they've tried to replace him several times, different draft picks, obviously JT Woods, and 6th-round pick, different regimes, different coaches. Like this, obviously drafted by Lynn, then through the Staley era. Now they gave him money during the Harbaugh Ortiz era. And so this guy's had to stick around, and I think he will this year. And I think he was a bit of the butt of the joke when he was drafted because no one knew who he was. And he was just, oh my God, another dumb Telesco pick. Like, who is this guy? We didn't watch film at the time, so it's not like we had any idea who he was.
Yeah.
Based on like what we had gathered and what other people were saying at the time, it's like, what is this selection? And then, first year maybe isn't like super great. Second year isn't really all that great, but there's a small jump. And then just the year before last year, you really tell there was just something extra there. Mm-hmm. And then finally, just this past year puts it all together and really develops again. I think some people really hold on to what they felt when he was first drafted and don't realize how impactful he is. And I think that even if he plays about the same as last year, he's going to be one of the most underrated contracts and with best value contracts in the NFL, $3.3 whatever million in a cap hit this year for the production that he provides. I think that he's going to be awesome in this system. I mean, he was so good last year in a year where like nobody knew what they were doing. The defense was awful. And yet Alohi Gilman still like figured out how to play football and knew how to be in the right spots and cover up for other deficiencies and hit hard or cover or whatever. So Pro Bowl will be would be awesome. I don't know how obviously that's a voting thing. If the defense is great, everyone's going to vote Derwin first. But even if Alohi does not win Pro Bowl or we get Pro Bowl honors, I think he can play like one. And so regardless of what happens, I do expect him to take a big step forward, like you're saying.
Yeah, I think the recipe is right for him to just continue to develop, and I think he was so good last season. And I think there were some games last season on tape that I watched recently where, I would say that Alohi Gilman was the second or third best player on the defense for several stretches of the season. Khalil Mack was just like next level dominant, but there were some games where Alohi Gilman was right there with him in terms of impact, in terms of production, consistency. I think the Packers game that I watched was kind of a disaster for everybody outside of Justin Herbert, but Alohi was right there, like leading the charge on defense. And there was a key thing early that kind of set the tone for him where you see him like diagnose what the Packers are about to run. It was a 4th and 1. And they try to do like a little flat route to Luke Musgrave and isolate him against Alohi. Like that was the plan of the offense. And Alohi like picked it up right away. And then he made the tackle in space on Luke Musgrave, who is a rookie tight end, but very athletic, explosive, loose mover with the football in his hand. So that kind of set the tone. And then he had another, pass break of that game. Great read, came from right hash to left sideline, like great safety play. So I think Alohi nationally is super underrated. I think other people are starting to like pick up on that. Like there's been some articles doing like most underrated player for each team, and Alohi's like consistently mentioned there. So I think he's going to have a huge season. I do. I think it's going to be super productive. Pro Bowl is going to take a lot of key moments and turnovers and things like that. And so it might be kind of a stretch, but that's why it's a bold prediction.
Yeah, I like it. I'm glad we open and close with Palmer and Gilman, who are two underrated guys that I hope have great seasons because they deserve it.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, let's get to some of these ones from the chat. I like this one from George Greenwald. He says, my bold prediction is that we will have 5 players get 500 plus yards receiving this season. What do you guys think?
Okay, so Palmer, probably Hurst, I'm guessing. McConkey, hoping Quentin. And is it Chark? Or because they don't have another receiving back. So I think there's no Eckler receiving back option here.
Right.
I guess I don't know.
5 is tough for me. Ladd and Palmer, easy. Hurst, I don't know. 500 is a lot for a guy like Hayden Hurst. Like I think he's only hit 500 yards once with Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. That was like it.
I guess I'm trying to figure out who of like it comes down to Johnston and Chark for me.
Yeah.
Like whether they make it or not and whether they even get the targets.
Yeah. I would feel comfortable in at least 3 wide receivers hitting 500 yards. So if you're asking about a bold prediction, I think this is a great bold prediction from George.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a hard, like, who they are is tough for me. But for a bold prediction, I think George is on the right track here because I can easily see 3.
Yeah.
Well, then you're only talking about Hayden Hurst having like maybe he has 3 big games that are kind of like pushing that up. Mm-hmm. And then Chark or Quentin just kind of maybe it's both of them instead of one of them. So I think that's a great one from George.
Yeah, that's a good one. From Dante, bold prediction: we sweep the Chiefs this year. Much to the sadness of one Chiefs fan in our comments who has a rotation of 1 to 2 comments. But that would be a bold prediction.
It would be very bold, yes.
Well, it is a bold prediction. Yeah. Yeah, if they want to split, cool. That I would love. If the Chargers split with the Chiefs this year, that's a win. But sweep is definitely bold.
It is definitely bold. As a bold prediction, I like it. I predicted them getting swept by the Chiefs. So.
Me too.
That's where I'm at with the Chiefs, but I get it. Miles and More here says Herbert 600 yards rushing.
Okay, now I gotta look up Justin Herbert's rushing stats. What's his 300, maybe.
It's got to be from his rookie season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not talking about.
I mean, then he had the broken ribs, and then like actively would refuse to run after that.
Okay, so his most is 302 in 2021.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
And I think like 100 were for that one Steelers game.
Yeah, because he had like a 60-yard carry that game.
Yeah. 600 yards rushing. That's bold. That'd be sick.
So he's basically averaged like 250-ish. So he had 234, 302, 147 with the ribs, and then 228 last year. So he's basically averaging like 250-ish. So 600 is definitely bold. What's kind of like what would you set the over-under at for that?
Oh, 300.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay.
I don't know yet that the Chargers are going to ask Herbert to run as much. And if he's running that much, then no one's getting open down the field potentially. So,
yeah. No, 600 is definitely bold. I think it's a little too bold for me. I think like 500 would be like a bold prediction that I could get behind. 600 is a lot. That's a lot of rushing yards.
Yeah, who was the leader last year in rushing yards? Just
for quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I can look it up if you want to find some comments.
Yeah, 600 is
Lamar was 821, obviously, and then Fields 653, Hurts 602. Even Josh Allen was 520.
Yeah, I think if you lowered this to 500, I think that would be kind of like the bar that I would set for a bold prediction. I think we see Herbert surpass his career high, but I think that's probably an easier prediction. So 500 yards, I would say, is the range where I would consider that bold. So 600 definitely is bold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was going to scroll up, but I don't see any more up from that. There was one about Bosa. We kind of talked about this earlier, but the second part of this from Enemy 805, 3 guys with 10 plus sacks.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one. I think it'd be straight up to 3 edge rushers.
I assume you're talking about Thule and not Bud.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. Thule had, if you look on Pro Football Reference, it was only 4.5, but PFF had him at 7. And because they don't split sacks.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it kind of depends how much of how much do you trust Joey staying healthy? Obviously, like he mentions first. And second would be like how big of a jump do you see from Thule? So I really like this one. I think this is a fantastic one from Enemy 805.
Yeah, I like that one. I'll take it. I like that one.
Okay. From David Anderson, bold prediction: Chargers will lead the league in interceptions. Healthy/elite pass rush equals more opportunities for the corners.
Lead the league in interceptions. Okay. How many interceptions is needed to even lead the league these days?
Well, this plays with my prediction about Alohi, so I think that's probably where I would start.
2023 interceptions.
You need a big season.
The Niners had 22.
That was the most?
Yeah, 22 from the Niners and Bears last year.
Oh.
And then
did not know the Bears had that many turnovers.
And then 2022, it was 20 Niners. And then the Bears with 14.
Interesting.
It was the Bears with this many interceptions.
So you got to get to like at least 18 to have a chance.
Cowboys had 26 in 2021.
Oh,
you got to get to 20.
26 interceptions? That's crazy.
How many did the Chargers
but he's right to his point. I mean, that was all the pass rush. I mean, that Cowboys team, I mean, they had Trayvon Diggs was healthy that year, but it's not like they had elite other cornerback and safety play.
Chargers had 9 last year. The Chiefs only had 8. That's crazy to me.
They force so many 3 and outs though.
Yeah. Dang, though, only 8.
Okay, so you got to get to 20. So you're talking about like at least 5 or 6 from Alohi, at least 5 or 6 from Asante. That gets you halfway there. Because Asante's he's had 5 before, hasn't he?
I think he had. Now look.
I know it's not more than 6 because the 3013 posted that graphic about 6+ interceptions. The last charter to do that was Casey.
Jeez.
But I know Asante has had at least 4 before.
Just gonna take me a bit, and I'm gonna sit here and look at the thing.
Nice.
PFF's gonna load, and it's gonna tell me that he had 2.
Asante only had 2 last year?
Yeah, in every year.
Oh. Why did I feel like he had like 4 as a rookie?
That's because 3 of them didn't count against the Chiefs.
That's right. That's right. This is bullshit. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so Asante's got to overproduce. Alohi's got to overproduce. And then you got to get Christian Fulton to get a few. You got to get some from the slot. Maybe Junior Colson gets a couple. It's possible because like he's saying, you know, the pass rush can make these guys speed up. So lead the league in interceptions. I like it. From David Anderson. Eddie Saldana said that his bold prediction is Ladd McConkey will have 90 catches and 10 touchdowns.
I'd love that. See, I can't just look back at the old Niners teams and like guess how many, you know, like I know one guy usually dominates, but this is a different team. 90 catches. I'm almost more likely to assume 10 touchdowns than 90 catches. Like I feel like
I would say 10 touchdowns is more likely than 90 catches as well.
Yeah. You can workshop McConkey to do a lot to get to 10 touchdowns. Although I don't know, you throw enough screen. I don't mind it.
Oh, Alex is in the chat. What's up, Alex?
How's selling your soul?
Alex is all aboard the LeBron James to the Sixers train right now. So,
well, the Lakers didn't get their coach, so dude said no.
But yeah, getting back to the Ladd thing, I think 10 touchdowns is more likely than 90 catches. I think 90 catches is really, really difficult for me to picture in this ecosystem of skill talent. Alex said, bold prediction, football will take place at some point.
Yeah. Feels like a long ways away.
Yeah. It's going to go by quick, though.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm going on vacation on Wednesday, so.
Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other ones. Are you that you like?
I kind of almost wanted to. I almost brought him up, but I wasn't sure how to make this work. But bold prediction: Christian Fulton ends up CB1 and gets paid top money next year. Now I don't think he gets paid top tier CB1 money because I think he has to have, you know, multiple years of that. But Jesse Minter, they talked about how he sees things to the end, the eyes of the DBs. Do you think he ends up being CB1 by year's end?
I think it's on the table because I don't know how much this regime trusts Asante. And we know he's going to have a great camp because he always does. But, you know, I haven't gone back and watched Christian Fulton's tape from last season, but Daniel Popper did. And like the way that he described Christian Fulton is like the exact way I think we all describe Asante. So I don't know, man. I think Cam Hart is going to be a starter by the end of the season and not because of injury. Like, I think that this team wants to be a little bit more physical on the outside. And I don't know if Fulton and Asante are that kind of style that they want. I think they're cool with one guy who's like ball hockey-ish and not super great tackling, but 2 of them I think is going to be difficult for this coaching staff to keep both of those guys on the season for the entire season.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I like this one.
Okay. From LOD, Laud, bold prediction, Alex Leatherwood takes over first team reps at right guard over Pipkins. So he hasn't done that yet. He's only played right tackle. It's only OTAs, but we have not seen him play guard yet. What I will say is that I really, really struggle to see Trey Pipkins being comfortable at guard. I went back and watched the tape. It's the issues that plagued him would be worse at guard. And I have such a hard time picturing him hitting his peak as a player at guard. So somebody else starting over Trey, I don't think is that bold. I still think that Jamari is the better option at guard. Alex Leatherwood starting over him is bold. We have to see him play guard at training camp. I think this team wants him to play tackle first.
Really?
They announced him as a tackle, and he's only played tackle in OTAs. Granted, he's only been on the team for like 2 weeks. I banned the Chiefs fan. He was too much. I think Leatherwood's a tackle for them.
That would rule out the guard thing then.
Right. But maybe they just kind of workshop some things in the training camp, but they just don't love Trey at right guard. They don't love Jamari starting, and it becomes Alex Leatherwood by default. But man, that would be pretty disappointing.
That would definitely be disappointing. I will say that we've seen especially with the previous regime, so many confusing, I'm not sure why that guy's starting over that guy moments. Right. I don't think that happens with this regime as much, but it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility. Like they could genuinely just say Leatherwood is our guy and he will be starting. And that's just the way it works. We've seen the entire interior defensive line room of the last 3 years be a mess because of Staley guys over better players.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Right now, I think they want Leatherwood to be a tackle, but I think it is possible that they change their minds and maybe he does get some snaps at right guard. Either way, I would love for them to go sign some like actual competition at right guard. That's what I'm saying today.
Yeah. Eddie, you're good.
Yeah. We always get a random like Chiefs or Raiders fan in here for some reason, like, and it never makes any sense like what time it is. Like, it's June 10th. We're talking about bold predictions for the Chargers. We have a Chiefs fan in here in the chat talking shit. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't understand. We'll get a Raiders fans popping in on like Chargers Jaguars game, and I'm like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So no worries, Eddie. You're good.
Yeah.
We appreciate the comments. Eddie's always in the live chat, and I appreciate all of you guys that are consistently in here. Again, it is June 10th. You know, we love and appreciate you guys who are always here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow night, we're going to be back live, and we're going to talk about what happens tomorrow at the first day of minicamp. Maybe there's going to be a veteran safety sign that's going to come out of retirement. We got to talk about that kind of thing. We'll see what happens. But other than that, tomorrow will be my last show this week. Tyler potentially maybe do a show on his own later. We'll see about that one if it does happen. And then we're going to be off for 2 weeks after that. So we'll make sure and make you guys aware of when that other show is back. But I'm going to unplug and take a break and delete Twitter and Instagram off of my phone and then just completely get away for the next little bit. I cannot wait. I love it. I love doing this. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Nope.
All right. Sounds good. All right, guys. Appreciate you all for tuning in. That's going to do it for us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, Bolt up.